There's two facts that everyone gets wrong about Redis. First, it's single threaded, and second, it's able to perform hundreds thousands of operations per second. You might be wondering, how is that possible? Because it's only working on single thread, and yet it's able to perform at a very big scale with very low latency. And that's what actually makes Redis interesting. As it's working on single thread, there is no lock, no race condition, no threading bugs, and yet it's able to perform like so many, like 100k operations per second, which is actually a real production load. So yeah, this is actually a really interesting concept. And before that, I'm Yatharth. I'm a senior software engineer. I use Redis every day in production. And few months back, I just realized I don't know Redis in depth much. Like, I've been using Redis as a high level. Like, I know all the Redis commands. I have been using Redis to solve a lot of problems that we faced in production, like caching, analytics, for rate limiting, for so many problems. And yet I don't even know how Redis works internally. So that was a major gap that I felt like for so long. And this video series is actually kind of like a journey where I'll be covering all the topics, all the concepts of Redis internals, how it actually works, and why it's so fast even working on a single thread. So yeah, I think this video series is going to be really interesting. So it's just an overview of this video series. We'll be covering foundations, data types, atomicity, persistence, all these concepts. And by the end of this video series, you will be able to explain how Redis is so fast even on a single thread and how it internally works, right? So this is really a very interesting concept. So yeah, let's go. So if someone asks you what Redis is, what would you say? You might say Redis is in-memory cache, or you might say Redis is in-memory key value store. You are technically right, but conceptually wrong. So Redis is actually, it's a in-memory data structure server. So I'll just write it. It's in-memory data structure server. So what do we mean by that? So Redis supports like so many data structures. It supports string, it supports lists, it supports set, it supports sorted lists, hashes, numbers, right? So it's very rich in terms of supporting so many data structures, and all of this is available at server side, right? What do you mean by that is in Redis, you don't even actually have to care about the value. Like, let's say you are fetching the value and then checking its type and performing all the operations that you want to perform, and then basically sending back that value to server. You don't actually have to do that. You can directly send all the instructions or operations directly to the Redis server, and it will do the operations, with just nanoseconds, right? So if someone asks you what Redis is, you could just say it's a in-memory data structure server. And yeah, I mean, you can also say that it's an in-memory key value store or cache, but that's just one part of the story, right? Because with Redis, you can solve so many problems. It's not just caching. Like, you can solve caching, you can solve rate limiting in production, you can solve analytics problem, dashboards problem, queues, streaming. There are so many problems that you can solve with Redis, right? So yeah, this was just a basic idea about Redis, and I would also like to cover the history of Redis. Okay, so who built Redis actually? So it was built by Salvatore Sanfilippo. So how did he actually build Redis? How did he actually come across the reason why he actually wanted to build Redis? So he was working on a side project. Its name was LLOOGG. It was a real-time log analyzer web app. You can also find it online on GitHub. I'll also link its description in the YouTube description video. So yeah, so he's working on this side project, and what was the main goal of this project was that you could actually register your website. You would get a particular JavaScript tag or script tag. You can paste that tag in your website, and that will allow you to track who is visiting your website, all the raw metadata of a particular website, of a particular visitor who is visiting a website, like from which browser he is visiting, all the metadata of that particular visitor, IP address, timing, everything. And it will also show you counters, like how many times a particular visitor visited your site. So basically everything related to who is visiting your website, how many times he's visiting your website. And later they also added AdSense clicks, so you can also see how many people are, like how many times a particular person is clicking on your ads that are being shown on your website. So they were initially trying to solve all these problems using normal SQL database, but they were facing so many problems in it, as they had to do a lot of joins, they had to do a lot of schema migrations whenever they have to add any new features. So there were so many problems, and that's how they realized that they have to build something on their own to solve this particular problem. So they started building Redis. So he actually started building Redis, and I'm not sure whether he helped him, Fabio, he was his co-founder, but yeah, he is the main author of Redis. He wrote Redis in C, and yeah, after implementing Redis and using it in the log analyzer web application, it was pretty fast. All the site tracking and everything that he wanted to do with this project, it was pretty fast, and he didn't have to even worry about schema migrations, join overhead, memory, CPU overhead, everything. So it was all solved. So yeah, this was the history of Redis, and yeah, it's really interesting. You can even read it online if you want to, but yeah, this is just an overview of how he came across this idea to build Redis. Okay, so let's just come back to Redis. It's not just a cache. I'll draw a few diagrams and then it might be more clearer. So this one is Memcached, which was released before Redis, and it was just a normal cache store, right? It was a normal cache store. You could just store key value, and it doesn't know about the value. Basically, it was just a pure string. Memcached doesn't have any idea what kind of value we are storing. It could be, for example, it could be number, it could be normal values, it could be a JSON, it could be some bytes, right? So Memcached doesn't have any idea what kind of value we are storing, and if you want to perform any operations on this particular value, so yeah, how do we do it? We fetch the value. We fetch the value by value by key. We get the value, we perform operations according to the type of value. We send the final result again in string. That's it. So this is how operations are performed, and all these operations are performed on client side. We can't perform all these operations on Memcached server. So yeah, this problem Redis solves it because Redis is a smart server. I'll just draw the box again over here and we'll name it as Redis. So the main advantage of Redis was it's a smart, intelligent data structure server in memory, right? It supports so many data structures. It supports lists, it supports strings, it supports numbers, it supports sets, it supports hash maps, right? So it supports a lot of data structures, and it also gives you some operations as well, which you can perform directly on all these data structures. You could perform increment, you could perform increment by. These are number related operations. You have lpush for queue related. So along with data structures, it also gives you some operation related commands that you could perform on all these data structures. So it's very intelligent in terms of data structures and all the operations and all the existing operations that we were doing in Memcached, by fetching the value in client side and doing the operations. You could do all this directly in Redis, using just simple commands, and all these commands are atomic. Okay, right? And as all these commands, they work in single thread in Redis, so there is no race condition, there is no lock condition, everything is safe, right? So with that, I'll just also draw a simple thread over here. It's a single thread. And how does it usually work? I'll just give you a high level overview. I'm not going to go in detail because I'll be covering this in much more detail in coming videos, where I'll explain why Redis is so fast just working with a single thread. So there's this concept event loop, which actually helps Redis to work very fast with single thread and performing like hundreds and thousands of operations per second. So I'm just going to give you a high level overview. So we have a single thread, and we have an event loop over here, and we have a queue over here. I'll just draw a diagram for the queue. It's a spelling mistake. Okay, so in the queue we will have some commands that we are getting from different clients or connections, that are trying to send commands to the Redis. It could be set, get, increment, lpush, right? So there can be a lot of commands which multiple clients are sending to the Redis. But Redis takes all those commands in a queue and send one by one this command to the single thread, right? So this event loop is like running continuously, and it's checking if we have anything in the queue. If we have anything in the queue, it just pop the item. It gives that particular command to the thread. So this thread main task is to parse the command, fetch the value, perform the command operation on that particular value, right? And just return the final results back to client. So this is how this thread works. All these operations, all these things are the duty of this thread. So it parsed the command, it fetched the value, it performed the command operation on that value, and it returns the final result back to the client. So this is how single thread works. And this queue can grow very big. There can be a lot of commands, but still with a single thread, it performs all these operations in just nanoseconds without any latency for millions of operations. And I'm going to cover this in more depth in the coming videos, where I'll explain why it's so faster, with this particular high level overview which I explained here. I'll explain it in more depth in the coming videos. And yeah, I think if you so this was just a high level overview of Redis. And yeah, in the next video I'll show you how you can install Redis and how you can actually communicate with Redis, using client, or even without a client, using just your terminal. So yeah, this was all for this video, and I hope you found this video interesting. And yeah, let's go very deep into the Redis internals and see and understand each and everything about Redis, how it's working internally and why it's so fast. And by the end of this video series, I'm sure that you'll be able to understand and explain to anyone if anyone asks you what Redis is and why Redis is so fast. So yeah, thank you, and see you in the next video.